The Galactic Communication Network had never seen anything quite like humans. For the first 3,000 cycles of interstellar civilization, the GCN had functioned with predictable efficiency. Species would make first contact, exchange pleasantries, share scientific knowledge, establish trade routes, and maintain diplomatic channels. Messages were concise, practical, and sent at reasonable intervals. Then humans showed up. They just don't stop talking, complained Zorlan, a purple-tentacled communications officer from Regal IV, as he adjusted the dial on his monitoring station for the 14,000th time that day. His specialized auditory membranes were practically vibrating off his head. It's like trying to catch individual raindrops in a hurricane. Humans had been part of the galactic community for barely 50 Earth years, and in that time, they had managed to completely overwhelm every communication frequency, subspace channel, and quantum entanglement network with their incessant chatter. Other species communicated when they had something important to say. Humans communicated because they had mouths. "Did you know," said Crix, Sorlan's green-scaled colleague, "that humans transmit something called reality television where they just record themselves existing, and other humans watch it?" Sorlan's eye stalks drooped in exhaustion. "Yesterday I intercepted something called a podcast where a human spent 3 hours discussing the historical evolution of shoelaces. And it had 17 million subscribers. The Galactic Communication Hub, an enormous space station shaped like a geometric snowflake, sat at a strategic point between major spiral arms of the Milky Way. Inside, representatives from over 3,000 species monitored, filtered, and redirected the endless stream of interstellar communications. Before humans, the hub had been a place of quiet contemplation and careful diplomacy. Now it was a chaotic mess of overworked aliens trying desperately to manage the tsunami of human transmissions. Commander Galactic, a stoic crystalline being who had overseen the hub for over 500 years, floated into the monitoring station. His faceted body reflected the blinking lights of the communication consoles. "Status report on the human channels," he chimed, his voice a pleasant vibration that resonated through the room. Sorlan's upper tentacles twitched in what passed for his species' equivalent of an eye roll. "Same as yesterday, Commander. And the day before, and the day before that. Non-stop transmission across all wavelengths. They've started something new called TikTok Interstellar that's already consuming 8% of our total bandwidth. 8% for a single human platform." Galac's crystalline structure momentarily clouded with concern. "That's more than the combined diplomatic channels of the entire Sagittarius arm." "Humans don't just talk, sir. They broadcast their thoughts on breakfast. They share videos of their offspring taking first steps. They argue endlessly about fictional characters in entertainment simulations. They transmit images of their pets wearing tiny costumes." Commander Galactic resigned himself to the new normal. The Council of Galactic Species had long ago decided that freedom of communication was one of the foundational principles of civilized space. They couldn't exactly tell humans to shut up. "Very well. Continue monitoring. Let me know if anything changes." Sorlan chuckled, his tentacles rippling with amusement. "The day humans stop talking, Commander, is the day the universe ends. At precisely 0347 Galactic Standard Time on what humans would call a Tuesday, every single human transmission stopped." Zorlan was in the middle of filtering a particularly annoying Earth broadcast, something called unboxing videos, where humans recorded themselves opening packages when the signal abruptly cut out. He tapped his console, assuming it was a technical malfunction. "Crix, are you getting anything from Sol System? My feed just died." Crix's scales shifted to a confused yellow pattern. "Nothing here either. Let me check the auxiliary channels." His claws danced across the interface. That's odd. Nothing on any of the backup frequencies." Across the massive communication hub, similar conversations were breaking out. Aliens of all shapes, sizes, and biochemistries stared at silent monitors in utter disbelief. For the first time in 50 years, the endless stream of human chatter had ceased. "Run a diagnostic on the entire network," ordered Commander Galactic, his crystalline body vibrating with concern. "Perhaps we're experiencing a hub-wide malfunction." Engineers scurried to their stations, but within minutes, they confirmed what everyone already suspected. The equipment was functioning perfectly. Human transmission had simply stopped. In-text cup. Maybe they're finally sleeping? Suggested a hopeful junior officer, a gelatinous blob from Deneb who had only recently joined the hub. All 8 billion of them? Simultaneously, Zorlan scoffed. Humans don't coordinate anything that efficiently. Besides, they have planetary rotation. It's always daytime somewhere on Earth. Kini. As the silence stretched from minutes into hours, the initial reaction among many alien species was one of profound relief. The constant barrage of human noise had been exhausting. The communication officers savored the quiet, taking the opportunity to catch up on backed-up transmissions from more reasonable species. But as the first full day of silence concluded, relief began to transform into unease. "This isn't normal," Crick said, his scales now a worried blue-green. Even during their global conflicts, humans never stopped broadcasting. Remember when they had that toilet paper crisis during their pandemic? They somehow transmitted more during emergencies. Commander Galactic convened an emergency meeting of the hub's senior staff. "We need to determine if this is a technical issue, a policy change, or," he hesitated, his crystalline structure darkening, "something catastrophic." "Catastrophic," echoed Zorlan. "You think something has happened to Earth? It's one possibility we must consider," Galactic responded. "In all of recorded galactic history, no spacefaring species has ever gone completely silent without warning. The Council of Galactic Species was notified, and an emergency session was called. Representatives from over 3,000 worlds gathered via holographic projection to discuss the sudden human silence. Perhaps they've finally evolved beyond their primitive need to constantly vocalize their thoughts," suggested the representative from Altair V, a being composed entirely of electromagnetic waves. "More likely they've destroyed themselves," countered the pessimistic delegate from the Barnard star system. Their transmissions indicated an alarming preoccupation with apocalyptic scenarios. As the council debated, analysts worked frantically to detect any signs of life from Earth. Long-range scanners showed the planet still intact. No signs of nuclear winter, asteroid impact, or alien invasion were evident. Earth looked exactly as it always had, a swirling blue-green marble hanging in space. Yet the silence persisted. By the end of the third day, what had begun as curiosity had transformed into genuine concern across the galaxy. For all their annoying habits, humans had become an integral part of galactic society. Their art, music, literature, and yes, even their ridiculous social media had spread throughout the stars. Countless alien species had developed a fondness for human culture, despite its chaotic nature. Someone needed to find out what was happening on Earth, and quickly. By the end of the first week of silence, galactic civilization was beginning to unravel at the edges. The interstellar stock exchange experienced its worst crash in 3 centuries as companies specializing in human entertainment saw their values plummet. The popular streaming service Netflix Nebula, which had expanded to 17,000 star systems, lost 90% of its market value overnight. Restaurants specializing in human cuisine, particularly something called pizza, that had become inexplicably popular on over 700 worlds, began closing their doors. "I've invested my entire life savings in human soap operas," lamented a distraught Proximan investor on the financial news networks. "What am I supposed to do now?" Their shows were the only ones that produced new episodes daily for decades without resolving any plot lines. More concerning were the psychological effects. Across the galaxy, aliens who had grown accustomed to constant human chatter reported feeling anxious in the silence. Support groups formed on space stations and colony worlds. Human silence syndrome became a recognized medical condition. "I can't sleep without my human podcast about unsolved murders," admitted a Betelgeuseian diplomat during a therapy session. "The way they dramatize gruesome crimes is oddly soothing." Conspiracy theories flourished in the information vacuum. The most popular involved a species of shape-shifting space slugs that had allegedly replaced all humans with silent duplicates. Others suggested humans had ascended to a higher plane of existence, or had entered into a secret pact with the mysterious beings from beyond the galactic rim. Religious cults emerged overnight. The listeners of the final broadcast gathered on moons and asteroids, analyzing the last human transmissions for hidden messages about the end of the universe. Commander Galactic watched the spreading panic with growing alarm. His crystalline form had developed stress fractures as the crisis deepened. "We cannot allow this situation to continue," he announced during an emergency meeting of the hub's executive committee. The silence of a single species should not cause such galactic instability. "What do you propose, Commander?" asked Zorlan, who hadn't taken a break in days, his tentacles drooping with exhaustion. "We must send an investigative team to Earth immediately." The announcement sent shock waves through diplomatic channels. Direct intervention in a member species' affairs was virtually unprecedented. Yet the Council of Galactic Species approved the measure with surprising speed. Even the normally isolationist hive mind collective of Tau Ceti voted in favor. "Who will go?" Crix asked, his scales flickering between uncertainty and excitement. "We need a team of specialists familiar with human behavior," Gelak explained, "individuals who can understand their bizarre customs and potentially dangerous emotional responses." Zorlan's tentacles suddenly stiffened. "Sir, you're not suggesting?" Gelak's crystalline structure pulsed with grim determination. "Indeed. We must send the Xenoanthropology Division." A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. The Xenoanthropology Division was infamous throughout the hub, a department staffed by the most eccentric, human-obsessed aliens in the galaxy. They were brilliant, certainly, but also considered slightly unhinged by their more conventional colleagues. "They're our only hope," Gelak insisted. "No one else understands humans like they do." As preparation for the mission began, the silence from Earth entered its second week. Galactic society teetered on the edge of full-blown panic. Meditation retreats were overwhelmed with aliens trying to cope with the unsettling quiet. Entertainment industries scrambled to produce content to fill the void left by human broadcasts. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a ship prepared to depart for Earth, carrying the galaxy's strangest experts on its strangest species. The investigative vessel Anthropological Anomaly was not the most impressive ship in the galactic fleet. In fact, it looked rather like someone had taken several different starship designs, thrown them in a blender, and assembled the results while blindfolded. This haphazard appearance was the result of constant modifications by its equally eccentric crew. Captain Morlazine, a tall, willowy being from the methane swamps of Deneb-Vii, stood on the bridge, her translucent skin displaying her nervous system like a living anatomy chart. She was the foremost expert on human emotional expressions, having spent 20 Earth years wearing various synthetic human face masks to understand how smiling and frowning affected social interactions. Status report. She called, adjusting her current face modeled after something called a customer service representative. "Engines operating at 94% efficiency," replied Chief Engineer Glorbax, a squat, silicon-based lifeform who had developed an obsession with human mechanical technologies, particularly something called duct tape, which he now applied liberally to every system on the ship. "We could go faster if we had more duct tape." "That won't be necessary," Morla responded, making a mental note to restrict Glorbax's access to the adhesive storage. Dr. Plex, the ship's xenolinguist, scuttled across the ceiling, his arachnid form casting spidery shadows over the control panels. He had mastered all 7,243 human languages and dialects, including several that humans themselves had forgotten. "I've prepared translation matrices for every conceivable communication scenario," he chittered excitedly, including something called teenage slang, which appears to change approximately every 8 Earth days. Rounding out the team was cultural specialist Thune, a gaseous entity contained in a hovering metallic sphere. Thune had spent decades analyzing human entertainment and was particularly fascinated by something called reality TV dating shows. As a being who reproduced by mitosis, the concept of romantic coupling was endlessly fascinating to them. What if they're all participating in a massive reality show? Thune theorized, their gas shifting to an excited pink hue. Perhaps they call it Ghost the Galaxy. The anthropological anomaly accelerated to faster than light speed, racing toward the Sol system as the galactic community held its collective breath. The mission had been given top priority, with the authority to make first contact with whatever remained of humanity or whatever had replaced them. As they approached Earth's solar system, tension built among the crew. None of them would admit it, but beneath their scientific curiosity lurked genuine concern. Despite their often annoying habits, humans had brought an unpredictable vitality to galactic civilization. The universe seemed duller without their chaos. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1. announced Glorbax, slapping a control panel that was more duct tape than actual technology. The swirling colors of hyperspace resolved into the familiar pattern of the Sol system. Immediate sensor readings showed all planets in their expected orbits. No signs of warfare, cosmic disasters, or invasive species were detected. Earth appears completely normal, said Morla, her synthetic face furrowing in confusion. The population readings consistent with our last census. That's impossible, chittered Dr. Plex from the ceiling. If they're alive and well, why aren't they broadcasting their every thought across all available frequencies? The ship moved closer, entering Earth orbit with stealth systems engaged. They deployed atmospheric probes designed to blend in with Earth technology disguised as something called weather balloons which, according to their research, humans expected to see occasionally and promptly forgot about. Later coming in, announced Thune, their gaseous forms swirling with anticipation, detecting normal human activity patterns, transportation systems functioning, energy grid operational, entertainment venues active. No signs of disease, war, or natural disaster. The crew exchanged puzzled glances, or in Thune's case, puzzled swirls. If everything's normal, asked Glorbax, applying a fresh strip of duct tape to his console for comfort, why did they go radio silent? Captain Morla made her decision. We need boots on the ground, or tentacles. Or pseudopods. Whatever appendages you all prefer to deploy. We're going down there. The team selected New York City as their landing site, as their research indicated it was a global hub of human activity and abnormally tolerant of strange beings walking its streets. They disguised their landing craft as a food truck selling artisanal fusion cuisine, which their research suggested would attract minimal attention in this location. As they stepped onto Earth's soil for the first time, the team was struck by the most unsettling observation of all. Humans were everywhere, going about their daily lives, seemingly untroubled by the galactic panic they had caused. Even more disturbing, they were all completely silent. This is unprecedented, whispered Dr. Plex, his 8 eyes darting nervously as they walked down a New York street. The team had donned their human disguises, which ranged from almost convincing Captain Morla to deeply unsettling. Glorbax, who had misunderstood human proportions and given himself 3 rows of teeth. The city was bustling with activity. Humans moved purposefully in all directions. The vehicles transported them efficiently. The commerce appeared to be functioning normally. Yet something was profoundly wrong. They're not talking, Thune observed, their voice emanating from what appeared to be a fashionable metallic backpack. Not just not broadcasting, they're not even speaking to each other. It was true. The humans they passed were eerily silent. No phone conversations, no chatting with companions, no arguing with street vendors. The background hum of human vocalization that should have filled the air was absent. And look, added Glorbax, pointing with an arm that was slightly too long for his disguise. No devices. This observation struck the team like a physical blow. Humans without their beloved electronic devices. According to all their research, this was equivalent to seeing fish without gills or stars without fusion. Something is very wrong here. Captain Morla decided. We need to make contact. She approached a human sitting alone on a park bench, attempting her most natural human smile, which made her look like she was experiencing moderate intestinal distress. Greetings, fellow human. I am also a human enjoying this typical Earth day. Would you care to engage in communication about recent events that might explain the complete cessation of all electromagnetic transmissions from your planet? The human looked up, studied Morla's face for a moment, then held up a small card that read, I'm currently digital detoxing. Please respect my journey. Captain Morla retreated to her team, confusion radiating through her transparent skin. What is a digital detox? Dr. Plex was already consulting his extensive database of human terminology. It appears to be a practice where humans temporarily abstain from electronic devices and digital communications to improve their mental well-being. But all of them? Simultaneously? Thune's gas churned skeptically inside their metallic container. The team continued their investigation, approaching more humans with similar results. Each person they encountered either displayed a card explaining their detox or made apologetic gestures before pointing to buttons pinned to their clothing with slogans like Unplugged 2025. and silence is golden. Eventually, they encountered a human child who, apparently too young to have fully committed to the detox, was willing to speak in hushed tones. "It's the Global Digital Detox Challenge," the child explained, looking around furtively as if afraid of being caught talking. "It started as a small trend, but then some billionaire guy offered a prize of $1 trillion to be shared among everyone who could stay completely offline for a full month. The whole world signed up. We're on day 10 now. $1 trillion divided among 8 billion humans is only $125 per person, calculated clawbacks." The child shrugged. "Yeah, but nobody thought everyone else would actually do it. People figured they'd be one of just a few winners. Now everyone's committed because nobody wants to be the first to break." As the alien team processed this information, they noticed a large screen in Times Square flickering to life. It displayed a countdown clock showing 20 days, 13 hours remaining in the Global Digital Detox Challenge. "You're telling me," Captain Morla said slowly, her synthetic face struggling to express her disbelief, "that humans have voluntarily stopped all electronic communications for a contest?" "Pretty much," the child nodded. "Plus people were getting kind of burned out on social media drama. The silence is nice, don't you think?" The team retreated to their disguised ship to report their findings to Galactic headquarters. "Let me clarify," Commander Galac's holographic form said, his crystalline structure clouded with confusion. "Humans have caused unprecedented galactic panic and economic collapse because they're taking a break from their devices?" "Affirmative," confirmed Captain Morla, "and they appear to be completely unaware of the consequences their silence has had on the rest of the galaxy." "Did you inform them?" asked Galac. The team exchanged uncomfortable glances. "We attempted to," Dr. Plex explained. "But when we mentioned we were representatives from the galactic community, the humans we approached assumed we were part of something called an RG, an alternate reality game designed to tempt them into breaking their detox. They refused to engage further." Galac's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been the equivalent of a sigh. "So the economic stability of 17 galactic sectors is at risk because humans are playing a game." "To be fair," interjected Thune, "it appears to be a very lucrative game for the winner." "What happens when this detox ends?" Galac asked. The team had considered this question based on psychological profiles of the species. Captain Morla replied, "We anticipate an explosive resumption of communication. In fact, the backed-up content from their period of silence will likely result in transmission levels approximately 370% higher than pre-silence baselines for at least 30 Earth days." Commander Galac's hologram flickered as he processed this horrifying prediction. "May the void help us all." 20 days, 13 hours, and 47 minutes later, humanity broke its silence in spectacular fashion. The end of the Global Digital Detox Challenge triggered what xenohistorians would later call the Great Communication Tsunami. Every human on Earth simultaneously rushed to their devices, desperate to share their month-long digital detox journey. Social media platforms crashed within seconds. Satellite networks became so congested that several actually overheated and had to be temporarily deactivated. At the Galactic Communication Hub, warning alarms blared as human transmissions overwhelmed the carefully calibrated systems. "It's worse than we predicted," shouted Zorlan over the chaos, his tentacles working frantically across multiple control panels. "They're not just resuming normal communication, they're transmitting everything they would have sent during the silence all at once." Crix's scales had turned a stressed magenta shade. 17 billion new videos uploaded in the first hour. 8 trillion messages. And why are so many humans sharing images of their meals from the past month? Who cares what they ate 3 weeks ago? The galactic economy whiplashed from recession back to frenzied growth as entertainment platforms struggled to process the backlog of human content. Alien species who had suffered from human silence syndrome now found themselves overwhelmed by the deluge, many retreating into specially designed quiet chambers just to escape the noise. 3 days after the end of the detox, the Council of Galactic Species convened an emergency session to establish new protocols. The resulting legislation, formally titled the Human Communication Contingency Act but colloquially known as the Shut Up, Humans, doctrine, created specialized buffer systems to prevent future human silence from destabilizing the galaxy. The anthropological anomaly and its crew were commended for their successful mission, though Captain Morla requested an extended leave of absence, but her transparent skin still showing stress patterns whenever she heard a human voice. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity remained blissfully unaware of the interstellar crisis they had caused. The trillion-dollar prize was ultimately divided among the millions who had completed the challenge, resulting in payments so small that most humans spent them on subscription renewals to the very digital services they had just taken a break from. 6 months later, as the galaxy had finally adjusted to the return of human noise, Commander Galactic received a disturbing report from the monitoring division. "Sir," said Zorlan, his tentacles unusually still with concern, "we're detecting the early signs of another human trend. Something they're calling Amish Month, where they simulate living without technology like a pre-industrial Earth culture." Galac's crystalline structure momentarily lost its cohesion, droplets of mineral solution spattering across his office. After recomposing himself, he activated the newly installed galaxy-wide alert system. "Attention all sectors, prepare for potential human silence. This is not a drill." As the alert echoed across 17,000 worlds, a comedian on a small planet orbiting Betelgeuse perhaps summed it up best in the grand cosmic joke that is existence. Humans are both the setup and the punchline. They're the only species that can collapse galactic civilization by simply shutting up. The universe, as it turned out, had grown to depend on humanity's incessant chatter, a realization that was simultaneously horrifying and hilarious to every other intelligent species. Humanity had achieved what no military force, economic pressure, or diplomatic maneuver could accomplish. They had made themselves essential by being consistently, reliably, and overwhelmingly annoying. And somewhere in the vast depths of space, the entity known as the Great Cosmic Observer added another note to its eternal log. Conclusion unchanged. Of all the universe's mysteries, none remains more baffling than how the noisiest species evolved on a planet that is 70% water, when they so clearly evolved from creatures that never learned to shut their mouths long enough to avoid drowning.